Over the past few weeks, well, maybe the past couple months actually, I've had a few experiences here and there where someone was telling me to be patient or to relax, and that everything's going to be fine and be patient. All I can say to those people is that you don't have a full understanding of what's being done to me. There are a lot of things that were being done to me that have stopped. The CIA has turned a number of different groups against me, but much of it has stopped. But there are certain things that still go on, and I'm going to describe that today because I think it's very important. I had made a video that was about an hour long. It was 2 half-hour videos, and it's just way too long. So I put some supporting information about some strange experiences I've had. Instead, I just felt that the whole thing should be shorter, so I'm narrowing it down to the most important aspects of what I've experienced. Now, I'll remind you right now that they get away with doing what they're doing to me by portraying the person as insane. And in fact, their goal is to drive the person to a state of complete insanity, in which, they're living in a state of destitution. They don't have good physical hygiene. They want me to be one of these dirty, filthy people walking around San Francisco like this, doing strange things. And a lot of them are actually under remote control. But, none of that has worked on me, as you can see. And there was a person in my life, one certain specific person in my life that I now know is in my life for a reason. And I've come to the conclusion that everything I do must be what's supposed to happen. So everybody who keeps telling me, trying to, covertly persuade me not to do this and not to do that, I don't trust you. And like I said, I think whatever I do must be the right thing according to how this is all going to wrap up. And you may remember reading on my blog if you're following along, or I may have mentioned in a video about an experience I had when I was walking down a sidewalk in San Francisco, and there was a woman approaching me from my left. Okay, and I glanced at her like anybody might. Well, not like anybody might, but I glanced at her. I'm going to talk in a minute about how they trained me to be like a motion sensor. But I glanced over at her, and when I first looked at her, the instant I was looking at her, she was just walking down the street, minding her own business, with a nondescript look on her face. And while I was looking at her, by way of a digital glitch, her face changed to a scowl, looking right at me like this. And so that's one thing. The other thing is that I think I may have mentioned on my blog is that sometimes when I look at my digital clock, particularly when I'm brushing my teeth, it looks like this. Now I want to tell you about another incident that I haven't written about. When I first moved to San Francisco, I lived out of a van for a few years, and then when I went on general assistance, I started staying in homeless shelters. The first one that they put you in is one called Providence, and it's pretty sparse compared to the others. It's held in a basketball gym, and they just give you a mat and a blanket, and you sleep on the floor with that. And the gym is full of people, rows and rows of people. There's probably a couple hundred people in there. Now, one of the nights I was there, the gentleman in the following video was positioned next to me. And this is one of the first videos I got without looking. I was pretty proud of this. I shot it perfect. Now, that night when we were laying down to go to bed before they turned the lights out, I was laying on my right side, and he was on my right. Okay. And he had given me some dirty looks. You can actually see it in the video clip. He was kind of giving me an admonishing look while I wasn't even looking at him. I was like looking the other direction when I shot that video, and it kind of reads. But anyway, when I was laying down on my right side, he laid down next to me, and he had kind of a backpack. It was black, and he set it down between my head and his, and then he very conspicuously turned it around 180 degrees so that a large Nike logo on the bag was facing my face. And I'm going to tell you now what that has to do with everything and exactly what's going on. Now, everything that I'm telling you about has to do with time travel and chronovisor technology, which is the ability to look back or forward in time. One of the things that's being done to me is my movements are being constantly tracked as if I was being tracked by GPS. And I think that's not such a surprise to some people. The other thing is that my actual thoughts are being monitored and policed. Okay, it's a very real thing. I know it sounds crazy. They get away with what they're doing by portraying the person as insane. And I think there's some people who know about this as well, though, and it's not that big of a deal. You know what goes on. The one thing that I think may be a surprise to some people that is, leads to this whole setup, this kind of secret, quote-unquote, justice system that has totally subverted everything the United States is about, is that they're actually monitoring and policing everything that I look at. It's like my eyes are a camera, and they have my view constantly. Okay. By way of that same technology, they can superimpose things into my vision, like someone with a different facial expression, which is how that they did the woman who's walking down the street, like mind your own business, and then by a digital glitch, her face changed to this. Okay, and that's how they do it. Now, I figured out how they do it, and again, it has to do with chronovisor technology, but it kind of takes a long time to explain, so I'm not going to go into it. But I'm telling you, the reason that the movie Deja Vu exists is a preemptive strike to defend a technology that's being used to destroy me and a lot of other people. Okay? It's a political targeting system that subverts everything the United States is about. So anyway, they're monitoring everything that I look at. Okay? Now, I have written extensively and probably talked in a video about how I have been harassed and tormented and stalked with death threats, etc. I've written that from the time I was a little kid. Okay, I've been set up to feel loneliness, and that feeling lonely impairs the executive function of your brain and makes you impulsive. Now, in recent years, starting around 2008, I've been driven to a state of complete isolation, which obviously would create extreme loneliness, which is therefore is a perfect setup for mind control, to provoke someone, to bait someone into whatever you want them to do. At the same time, they've done all this harassing to make me nervous. And what they do is very, very ambiguous. And what it does is it makes you paranoid. Now that paranoia and nervousness combined, and lack of executive function and being impulsive and lack of self-control makes you like a motion sensor. So that when I'm out in public and there's anything remotely significant in my view, any kind of movement, anything that looks significant, anything that might make me paranoid or scared or concerned about anything, I'm going to turn to it. I'm going to look at it. It's a product of what they've done to me. Okay? So they've done that. They've made me a motion sensor, or made me a paranoid, impulsive motion sensor. They've isolated me from human interaction. They're monitoring everything I look at, and they can superimpose odd kinds of facial expressions and body language that aren't really there. And explaining exactly how they do that with any given individual, I'm not really sure. But I'm telling you that's what they do. They get away with it by portraying the person as insane. Now, while all that's going on, okay, not only are they baiting me into clicking on child pornography links, which I have proof of. Proof. They're also 12-year-old girls dressed like adults out in front of me in public, on the bus, on the sidewalk, wherever you want, they do it. Okay? Now, out of the paranoia and impulsiveness and nervousness and wondering, wow, is this really what they're doing? Okay, I am compelled, out of the lack of self-control and everything that I just told you combined, to look at that girl and wonder, oh my God, are they really doing this? Are they really actually setting me up this way? And if I look too long, 20 minutes later when I'm walking down the street, some cop is going to walk by me and go like this. And that's how they do it. Okay, and that's the setup I've been subject to. And I've never been arrested. I've never been addressed officially about anything, but it's a totally secret system. And the thing that I would say now is that if you're someone who cries about the system damaging you, if you haven't been a subject to what's happening to me, you don't know what the system is. But that's what they do. I've never had a pedophile thought or intention in my life. Never. What you guys are doing is a gross violation of everything that the United States is about. Okay? And I've learned, as I mentioned earlier, that a certain person was in my life for a reason. Okay? Everything does in fact happen for a reason. Okay? And the people who are responsible for all the things that I just described that are being done to me, I'm telling you, I've had to ascertain everything and add it all up and figure it all out. And I am quite positive that you are in seriously deep shit. But there is one other thing I should tell you about. I've mentioned on my blog and possibly in a video that I've learned that there are a number of movies and television shows that have elements that are common to my life. My Name is Earl is one. In the movies, I wrote on my blog recently that there are things that are common in my life with the movie V. There are so many, but the most important one is King of Queens, the television show King of Queens with Leah Remini and Kevin James, which has another. Did I say My Name is Earl? It stars a Scientologist, and Leah Remini is a Scientologist as well. But anyway, in King of Queens, there are very few episodes that don't have something that's common in my life. Now, instead of going down the list of all those things, which I may do sometime, but in the later episodes of King of Queens, there is a scene in which the character Spence Olchin is talking on his cell phone in his apartment. And he's sitting near the television where there's a television show on. Okay, and I don't remember what it was. But in his conversation with someone on the phone, he asked them a question. And then, in a strange, bizarre coincidence of timing, a character in the television show he was watching said something that was part of the script of the television show and answered his question. And he commented on it. He said, "Oh, wow, it was like the television. He answered the question." Okay. Spence Olchin, or Patton Oswalt, is the typical angry nerd comedian. Now, I had a clip of something I saw online that was strange, where it said John's Watchful Comedian. Here it is. Now, I'll mention again that I worked in television in New York for 6 years. The reason that I bring all of this up is that it's another aspect of what's being done to harass and torment me. The scene in King of Queens when Spence was talking on the phone and the television answered his question. I've had several experiences very, very similar to that. It's been an ongoing thing. The main place where this happens is with the television in the lobby of my building. Often when I come in from outside and then have to stand at the elevator waiting for the door, there will be something on there that's meant for me to hear. Usually it's something about rape or sexual compulsion or pedophilia. Okay. Now you say that's just a coincidence. Well, I'm telling you that oftentimes it happens when I'm exiting the elevator door and heading to the exit door, which only takes 5 seconds. Now, recently, about a month ago, I think, I posted about the movie Deja Vu and how it's a preemptive strike to defend the technology that's being used to destroy the United States Constitution by doing what's being done to me. It was shortly after I posted that I came in the door from outside and I heard a voice on the television say, "Public safety is my top priority." Okay? Today's July 22nd, by the way, the Feast of Mary Magdalene. I think it was within the past week that I was coming out of the elevator and with perfect timing, I heard someone say, "I'm just doing my job." It's just like the scene in King of Queens, and it's not all a coincidence. And all of these things are being combined, and as I said, it's a setup that's been done to me since I was a little kid to make me feel lonely so my impulse control is impaired, so that I have my self-control in general is impaired. They bait me into clicking on child pornography links online, which I've proven. Okay, they're monitoring everything I look at. Then they bait me with little girls on the street after I've been forced to a state of loneliness and terror, and then harass me because I looked at a little girl that they put out in front of me, and because I've been made a motion sensor, of course, I'm going to look at anything like that, And it just happened today in church. And what they can do is they can make anyone give me those dirty, admonishing looks, including a priest up on the altar. Because I'm looking at an altar boy the same way a parent might, thinking, wow, I'm glad to see there's an altar boy out there considering the conspiracy against the Catholic Church. So that just happened today, and the people who are telling me to be patient and relax, you don't have a clue as to the reality of what's being done. And if I just let it all go and didn't try to do anything, as I said, I'd never be able to face that guy again who was in my life for a reason, and you're all going to find out why. There's one other aspect of what I'm experiencing that I want to talk about now. I've mentioned that I suspect that I've been abducted at least 4 times, maybe 6. Okay. Part of what's happening to me is political extremists on either side are playing a game with me. It's like a game of political influence. Okay, like they're playing a tug of war with my mind. And I've come to suspect that they target people who are party independent. Okay. It's like there's this secret civil war going on in which they've agreed that there's not going to be any bloodshed, nothing physical. It's all just a mind game. Okay. And when they pick someone to target them, driving them to a state of isolation is part of the game. Okay. So it's all ingrained in the system to keep me stuck like this while they do this really abusive kind of tug of war game with me. That's actually part of this stupid civil war. That's a secret thing. I know it sounds crazy, but that's how they get away with it, by portraying the person as crazy. I'm not even supposed to have the wherewithal to be making these videos. I'm supposed to be on the street right now living in the gutter with no proper physical hygiene. I have a vague memory of when someone abducted me and drugged me and or got me drunk. And I remember them saying something about picking a side between liberal and conservative, I believe. And the whole thing is, I have these kind of weird, vague memories, and it's like I doubt some of them, but the thing that makes me sure about them is there's always one thing that's very clear. Okay, and the one thing that's very clear was the voice of an older white male, perhaps somebody who was in his 50s, saying, they brainwashed him. He'll change his mind. Okay, and I was barely conscious at the time. And it's all ingrained in the system, and part of it is preventing you from getting a job and keeping you framed for all these terrible things until you pick one socialist extremist side or the other. It's a very real thing.
The reason that these 3 odd ads showed up on a web page where they make no sense at all, they don't advertise anything, was to indicate to me that I'm locked in a haunted house and, part of this kind of artificial, invisible incarceration and being prevented from having sex. Simultaneously, I'm being baited into clicking on child pornography links, of which I have very clear proof.
It's like 1984 from all sides. If you've read 1984 and it says the party, you know, I think your natural reaction, like mine, is going to be to think that it's the opposite party of the one you affiliate with. But it's not. It's all. And it's not just parties. It's powerful political extremists that are on either side, maybe different factions, and they all kind of play a game with your mind while they keep you driven to a state of isolation and destitution. It's a very real thing. And it's all connected to everything that I talked about in this video. You know, I just want to mention real quickly before I cover this one last point that in the video, if I seemed a little frustrated sometimes, it's because that's what they've done. Everything that they've done is meant to drive you to the state of frustration while the police ignore me, et cetera, et cetera. So I've done everything I can to stay calm, and my impulse control and my self-control has been sabotaged from a very young age. So, you know, I know that sometimes I seem a little upset about it, but if you were a specific individual target for this kind of thing, you'd be upset too. But anyway, one more thing that I wanted to mention. Earlier this year, I applied for Medi-Cal, which is, you know, the coverage for people of low income, medical coverage for people of low income. And when I first applied, they kept sending me back letters asking me for verification of my income. I think I had to send proof 3 times to prove that I qualified for it. I went to see my doctor, and she, this was like in, I think, April. This is July 22nd. I think it was in April or May when I had the most extensive MRI that you can have. It's a very, very unpleasant experience. My doctor, a woman named Rochelle, who's very rude to me and blows me off, recommended me for it. I figured that after that MRI, you know, she would call me back for a follow-up, which she hasn't done. It's been 2 months. One of the visits when I went to visit her, they just said, "Oh, we need an EKG," which had nothing to do with anything. And then they said that I had an irregular heartbeat and that I had to go to the hospital. And they called an ambulance, and the San Francisco Fire Department came, and the head guy shoved me before he walked out the door. He like shoved me right there in the shoulder before he left. Those are the kind of things that go on. So anyway, I haven't heard from my doctor in 2 months after this very extensive MRI. Then, just a few days ago, I got some information in the mail about Medi-Cal, this very thick catalog that's like a small department store catalog, and then these 2 more. You know, and I haven't really looked through them that much yet, you know, just because I've already been to see my doctor. But anyway, a few days before I got those catalogs, I got these 2 envelopes, okay, both from the city of San Francisco. Now, what I want to mention before I talk about what's in these is that part of what's been done to me is to make me constantly have things to wonder about. No one's ever officially or openly or directly addressed me about any of this. I've never been arrested in my life. It's all this kind of psych job meant to just really, really destroy your mind. Okay, and one of the things they do is do odd things that are harmless, but will make you wonder because they're odd. So, I got these 2 envelopes from the city of San Francisco, and all it is, which I don't know why they sent it because I already knew I was qualified, but it's just it's a confirmation letter saying that you're qualified for Medi-Cal. Okay, and that's what it looks like. And it has this other page in the back. If they told you you're not qualified, then you send this in if you want to protest or whatever. Okay, nice of them, right? So I figured I'm one person. One of these would probably do. But the same day I got that envelope, I also got this one. Okay, I know that glare is kind of screwing up the video. You know, I'm not in a professional studio. And in this envelope, there are 3 sets of folded up papers. Okay, 3 sets. And maybe you can tell by glancing at them. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But this is the exact same thing that came in that other envelope by itself. And then in this stack that came in that big envelope, there again there's 1, 2, 3 sets of the exact same thing that came in that envelope by itself. Okay, so that's 4 total. And then there was another stack of folded papers in that big envelope, and wouldn't you know it, it's the same thing again. 1, 2, 3 copies. So that's a total of 7 copies in this one big envelope, and then 1 in another envelope that all came on the same day. And I, for someone like me who's been driven to a state of paranoia, when you get that thing, you tend to wonder about it. You know, like, well, what, is that supposed to make me feel better? You know, I've got this doctor who sent me for an MRI and hasn't called me back since, and now I get 8 copies of a confirmation letter that I qualify for Medi-Cal on the same day, you know? But I tell you what, I'm not going to wonder about that. I'm going to let you wonder about it instead. Finally, there's another thing I want to mention that I referred to earlier that I forgot to clear up. At the shelter, when that guy turned that bag around to face the Nike logo toward me while I was laying on my side, he was advertising to everyone that he knew was watching what I was looking at. And, you know, that was one of the things I looked back on and added, you know, it enabled me to add everything up and figure out what was going on. That there are people actually monitoring what I look at. And I think the most significant thing about that is that it must be a very large number of people who are actually watching what I look at and monitoring and policing what I look at by harassing me when on the front end they're setting me up to bait me into looking at things that I have no interest in looking at anyway. And that's what they're doing. I had another experience like that where a guy was trying to advertise a cell phone act for me at another shelter. Yeah, same deal. You know, there's like he was talking out loud to no one about this great idea he had for a cell phone app. And, you know, this is when I was still confused, but I was just starting to figure everything out. And then later I added that up with the Nike thing and all the harassment in response to what I look at. It's just this one big kind of invisible system that relies on destroying your privacy completely.